Hi, friends. It's Sienna Willison with Our Blooming Catholic Life, and we're here today with our fifth installment in From Cozy to the Cross, how we get from comfortable habits that may not be the best for us into a life of beautiful suffering of the cross. And you're like, whoa, that is a life of love, friends. And let's see how we can grow in that this season. The first book we're looking at is Bilbo's Journey, Discovering the Hidden Meaning of the Hobbit. It's by Joseph Pierce, who has a class on this book and the following one free with Ave Maria University. But we're doing this book and a couple more, and we're using a Franciscan flair. So we're going to start today with chapters 9 and 10. That is Dragonness, Sickness, and Dragon Pride Proceedeth Before a Fall. There's a lot of talk about pride and humility and how we grow in our trials. And in the spiritual journey, we know a lot of people talk about the dark night of the soul. And you're like, well, how? Nothing grows in darkness. So let's pause here before we talk about it in the spiritual life and see how God has revealed some of this to us in the natural world. Now, we all know our bodies. We know people need sleep. There's a lot of processes that our human bodies do in the night when we are supposed to be sleeping. We all know people, if they're forced to work at night, their sleep cycle's off. They tend to be off too. They're not living to their full human potential when they don't get that sleep at night. We know that's true in lands that have the sun for multiple days in a row. We know that's very difficult for them to function, and they often create times of artificial darkness so that they can sleep and get all those restorative properties. Did you know plants do this as well? We've all heard of photosynthesis, and we know that involves green plants and the sun. There's also a dark phase of growth with plants. In the dark reaction, it's the second stage of photosynthesis process. Just like in the spiritual life, it's the second phase. And normally we talk about getting up, starting the day in the morning, and sleep is at night. It's the second phase. This is basically the conversion of carbon dioxide into glucose using energy from ATP and NADPH production in the light reaction. So in the light reaction, it's going to make some things, but we actually need to convert that one more step. There's more steps that need to happen. It is essential for studying plant biology and the overall ecological impact of photosynthesis on the environment. By delving into the intricacies, researchers can gain valuable insights into how plants thrive and contribute to the global carbon cycle. It tells you the key players in the dark reaction process contribute significantly to the conversion of carbon dioxide into organic compounds. It is an intricate biochemical pathway that is vital for production of energy-rich molecules essential for plant growth and survival. Wow. It is essential. Very exciting. So it's revealed to us not only in our human bodies, but in plant life as well, that somehow we need that little dark phase, that dark night of the soul to grow. Why should it be any different for our spiritual life? In our spiritual life, we're not converting carbon into energy, but we're how to say this? We're no longer getting the easy, quick consolations. We have to transfer what we learned from that time of consolation to rely on the Lord. So we are using those things that we learned, those little feedings, the constant reassurance that God is there. We're using that. We're extending that. We're stretching ourselves and saying, God is always there, even when I don't feel him, right? I know I will grow in faith, hope, and love. Another word for love often used is charity in this. We are going to grow in those virtues during those times. Well, we pray. That's the point. That's some time. Now we see here that they've gotten access to the secret passage into the dragon's den, and Thorin, the dwarf, is now reminding Bilbo that the time has come for him to perform the service for which he is included in their company and to earn his reward. Now, this angers Bilbo, and rightly so, because he has saved the dwarves multiple times already, and that wasn't even a part of the bargain. What do you mean, earn my reward? I've done all these extra things, and you're still acting like I'm nothing. And I thought it was interesting to contrast this. I don't know if contrast is the right word, but let's jump to Luke chapter 17. It is the lessons of avoiding scandal and the efficacy of faith. And we have Jesus Christ saying to his disciples, "It is impossible that scandals should not come, but woe to him through whom they come. It were better for him that a millstone were hanged around his neck, and he cast into the sea, than he should scandalize one of these little ones. So take heed unto yourselves. If thy brother sin against thee, reprove him, and if he do penance, forgive him. And if he sin again against thee 7 times in a day, and 7 times in a day be converted unto thee, saying, I repent, forgive him." And the apostles said to the Lord, "Increase our faith." Beautiful. They're like, whoa, 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 that's a lot. And what's the Lord say to them in return? He says, if you had faith like a grain of a mustard seed, you would say this to the mulberry tree, "Be thou rooted up and be thou transplanted into the sea," and it would obey you. You only need that little tiny bit of solid, really hardcore faith, right? You only need that little bit, and you should be able to move mountains, friends. Like what's holding you back? Live in that faith. And he says here, "But which of you having a servant plowing or feeding cattle will say to him when he's come back from the field, 'Oh, immediately go and sit down to meal,' and would not rather say to him, 'Make ready my supper, and gird thyself and serve me, while I eat and drink, and afterwards thou shalt eat and drink'? Does he thank that servant for doing the things which he commanded him? I think not. So you also, when you shall have done all these things that are commanded you, say, We are unprofitable servants. We have done that which we ought to do." And think of the 10 commandments. Okay, you do them. Good for you. Do you expect a reward just for doing the 10 commandments, just for doing what was asked of you? And here we have Bilbo like, wait a second, I've gone beyond what I was asked to do. And what? But what does he do? Nonetheless, with a gesture of heroic magnanimity, he agrees to explore the secret passage, even though none of the dwarves will go with him. "I'll do it anyway. It's what I agreed to do. I've already gone beyond what I said I was going to do, but I'll do what I said to do as well, because I agreed to this." And he slipped the ring on his finger. Uh-oh. But he was still trembling with fear, but he was resolute. It says Bilbo's clearly a very different hobbit from the one who had left the Shire so reluctantly months earlier. And going down, down, down into the dark, he discovered at last the dragon's den. He was staggered. He was left without words. That was a lot. It talks here a lot about language, forgotten languages. It's a very interesting thought. And here I'm reminded, you know how we say that on this channel, okay, whenever we do our Lectio Divinas lately, we've been ending with a prayer for spiritual communion. And I've gotten it out of this little Blessed Sacrament prayer book. And it's a little bit longer than the usual spiritual communion prayer. But I found myself at Mass last night without words for a brief period. And the words that came to me were words from that spiritual communion. And it just flowed. It just flowed out of me because I was left with no words, but I was left with these beautiful words of faith that I had learned through this book. And if you study St. Francis at all, when you read his writings, you realize he started speaking in the language of the Psalms. They became his words. It's really interesting, especially if you look, trying to look and see where it is, the little office of the Passion that St. Francis had written. It was one of the little hours that you can do for the Liturgy of the Hours. It's one of the little hours that secular Franciscans are allowed to do. And it's just bits of psalm after bits of psalm, and they are woven together in this beautiful tapestry because St. Francis prayed them so often. The Psalms, the Bible itself, became his language. That is a beautiful, beautiful gift of faith right there. It talks about how modern, in this book, it talks about how modern English is dumbed down. You'll see this a lot of times if you try and write. I use the words very. I use a lot of words over and over, very simple words. And we realize how dumbed down our language has become, even in how we speak to each other. And we almost need to go back and be more descriptive. Last night I was talking with someone, and they could not get the point I was trying to make because I had simplified things so much. Each word had a whole bucket of meaning in it, but I wasn't saying all of those meanings. I was saying it very simply. And the thing I was talking about was when a hoarder comes to a parish event, and a parish event in which there is free food, there's free dinner, and there's always tons of leftovers, and there are plenty of empty seats. Do you allow the hoarder to come into the program? They've already registered. Can they come in, or do you say, no, some people may not be comfortable with you here, and so you need to go? And unfortunately, I witnessed this. I know I've talked about it before, because it really struck my heart and really made me think about how I could handle that. I was a witness to it, and I really didn't stand up in the situation. I think I've always regretted that. The person's now passed. And I wasn't saying all these things. And the point the other person was stuck on was they're like, well, it's not a parishioner. They weren't invited. They weren't signed up. I was like, oh, okay. Our parish has several people there who are hoarders, who are parishioners. This particular one has passed now. And people were a little surprised by that. Hoarders and homeless doesn't necessarily mean you don't have a home. This particular person did have a house technically, but it was filled with things, and so the person was living outside the home and no longer really had access to running water and electricity, so wasn't the cleanliest person, and some other features that happen if you stay living outside for quite some time. The different changes do happen in your body that it can make other people a little uncomfortable. This person actually, okay, confession time here. I may have hid some cleaning supplies, little bottles of shampoo and things in the restroom so that this person could wash their hair and tidy up a bit before coming to things. She laughed when she saw me do it. She said, you're learning the homeless ways. And I saw her do it once, so I kind of refilled her things for her a couple times. And I thought it was a blessing to accompany her. And I was grateful that she wanted to come and have time with fellowship. This was a person who had a deep wound that I happen to know what this person's particular deep wound was. But I imagine every person in this situation does have some deep wound. And we all have deep wounds. They manifest in different ways. We're ugly to people in different ways, friends. But I wasn't able to communicate all this when I said it was a hoarder who was coming. I did not communicate that this was a parishioner. That was a parishioner who was known, a parishioner who was allowed to come to other programs, somebody who had registered, and other people who had done the program before were invited to come back. We were told everyone could come back, kind of to help out in the small groups. And so why would she think that she was excluded from this? She had valuable contributions, the same as everyone else. And I didn't communicate all that with the simple words that I used to describe her. Why? Because my language has become so simple, and I glossed over many things instead of explaining them. We do have a dumbed down language, many of us these days. It says we are constrained within a linguistic straitjacket that continues to shrink. Yes, our word hoard is being depleted, and it's an entropic decay. Is it unavoidable or unassailable? It's very interesting. And so here Joseph Pearce is examining that. If it's the consequence of disenchantment, it would be reversible, possibly through reenchantment. It is an interesting and vitally important question. Beautiful, beautiful stories. Storytelling used to be such a thing, and it's not now. Now, if you think about it, what used to be storytelling is now memes. Simple things that, the spelling in memes are off and off. The words are just short and quick and to the point. But they miss all that nuance and beautiful and decadence of the actual lived experience of people. And so perhaps we need to start storytelling again, and a little bit less with memes. So here we have Bilbo. He is filled with both wonder and terror. It's interesting. It's a dragon in the midst of a treasure trove. Which one is filling him with wonder, and which one is filling him with terror? Probably both things. A giant treasure like that would fill me with terror. I'd be tempted to take it all. And as well, the dragon would fill me with terror. But as well, the dragon is a magnificent beast. He would fill me with wonder. And the treasures are beautiful and sparkly. So both. They're both a temptation, right? Something that could be beautiful if used well. Can you imagine if you could harness the great power of a dragon? We see all those movies where people fly on them, or they're fighting machines for battle, or you could probably get them to dig up a field for you or something. I don't know. But sometimes you're like, if only I could tame that. They're not tame things, are they? And then we talk about the obsessive possessiveness of dragons, which is quite applicable to people, especially in our consumerist culture that we're in right now. And again, we're in a season of Lent. We're a cozy little hobbit. We have filled our pantry full of beautiful foods. Hopefully, that is what Fat Tuesday, Fastnacht Day, I forget what the Polish call it, but a lot of people have different words for that day. Pancake Day. It was to get rid of all the fatty, rich things in your house, to get rid of them. You were to use them all up. And it was kind of symbolic as well. Get rid of all those ingredients, those food things. But also, if you have an excess in your life, this is the time. Lent is the time to start downsizing, getting rid of all those extra things. Give them to the poor. Give them to somebody who needs them. That is where the almsgiving comes in. And it's funny how many people are quite happy to celebrate with the pancakes. And then it's a little funny because that was meant to get rid of those things in your house. That was supposed to be the last time you were having them. Pancakes, donuts, whatever. And yet how many people on Fridays, when it's a meatless Friday, will turn to things like pancakes? We didn't really get rid of all those rich foods, did we? So how much more do we need to look at other things for our almsgiving and for our Lenten journey? Let's see here. Yes. Over here we have the Lord of the Rings. We are not presented with dragons in their customary physical form, such as Smaug appears to us in The Hobbit. Instead, there will be a variety of dragons in disguise, just as in our lives. We know plenty of people in our lives that we know have dragon sickness, but they do not have scales and tails. But you can still see it, right? Let's see here. He then begins another time of riddle with the dragon. He is teasing the dragon in order to conceal his own identity and to discover the dragon's weakness. And in fact, there is the riddle that talks to the mystery of baptism. It says, I am he that buries his friends alive and drowns them and draws them alive again from the water. Beautiful, beautiful Christ-like account there, right? The Hobbit is a figurative account of Bilbo's own baptism into the fullness of life. He had been dead when trying to preserve the life of creature comforts at Bag End, his home in the Shire, and he needed to die to himself, laying down his life self-sacrificially for others, which is the hallmark and meaning of love, in order to find the fullness of life. He had to lose his life in order to gain it. He had to bury his old life of self-centeredness in order to be resurrected into the new life of adventure. He had to risk death in order to find life. In short and sum, he needed a baptism of death-defying and life-giving grace. The dragon, of course, scoffs at this riddle, and many people will scoff at you as you tell them your own faith journey. That happens, and we know. And it's interesting as well that how did Bilbo start that riddle? He said, I am he. I am. Beautiful. Showing us that even in that, Christ is with us. We are not alone. Bilbo may not know this. He may just think that luck is on his side. And he knows that Christ is with him in some way. Now, he also thinks that the ring is one of his advantages. So he's relying on his own powers a little bit there. Tips and tricks that he has learned along the way. So that's going to come out against him in a bit, won't it? Chapter 10 here, dragon pride proceedeth before a fault. There's the battle of wits. when that battle of wits, and we've all had arguments, whether it's apologetics with people of other Christian traditions or atheists. It can be on social media, it can be in real life, but also battle of wits when you're fighting even with a loved one, a friend, a spouse, whatever. We have those. And oftentimes in those back and forth, somebody reveals how they are vulnerable. It was really interesting one day. A friend had said something that seemed so odd to me, and she was really angry about the thing that I wear skirts all the time or dresses. And in this back and forth exchange, she was trying to defend pants, and it was weird. And she came up with some valid reasons, like I'm allergic to bees, so you wouldn't think that I'd want to go out, or, poison ivy, go out and be exposed the way you are with a skirt. In fact, it's actually easier with bees, because if I've gotten bees trapped in a pant leg before, and that is not pleasant, where they've just climbed right up the leg of the jeans. And that led to a lot of badness there. But if you were in a skirt, you could just floof the skirt and off they fall. And in fact, I've had a bee get caught in the folds of a skirt once, and I just unfolded it and off it flew. So skirt is an advantage there. Poison ivy, not so much, but they do make lotions that you could put on your legs, or you could wear long socks or something, whatever. But as she was talking about these vulnerabilities of skirts in nature, it came out that was not the vulnerability she was talking about. It wasn't about bugs and poison ivy. It was about a complete vulnerability. There was a failed relationship she had, and she was never going to let herself become close to a man again. And somehow that skirt represented that femininity, that wedding dress that she had bought that she never got to wear. She's passed now too. May she rest in peace. All of them. But when she let that slip, I was just in awe. I had no idea such a deep wound laid behind it. I was just defending my own use of skirts. And when she revealed that, did my heart break for her? She revealed that woundedness. It started out as a back and forth. And sometimes you get so caught up in trying to win the battle that you reveal something you may not have meant to reveal. Beautiful how that plays out here again, because Smaug's weak spot is not merely over his heart, it is of his heart. It's that dragon sickness, that wickedness of his heart that led to his downfall. And again, that happens with a lot of us. Pride or hubris with the presence of Christ. The destructive of pride or hubris with the presence of Christ's redemption of humanity. Christ is offering it all to us. And if we are turning away from him, how prideful are we? There's somebody offering to help us. He's offering that. And do we turn away and say, no, I've got this? Oh, do you? And honestly, it's even Bilbo here with his ring. I got this. He's not quite there yet. He's still relying on that. He's holding on to that trick he's learned. But here, as Smaug is spiraling, and he gets so angry, he leaves and takes his wrath out onto the lake people. And now they realize, the hobbits and dwarves, that they are trapped in this cave. The entrance got covered, and they can't get out. There's so much treasure there. But Bilbo, as the dwarves are sinking in despair, Bilbo felt a strange lightening of his heart, as if a heavy weight had gone from under his waistcoat. Christians reading this passage will be reminded instantly of the words of Christ, "My yoke is sweet and my burden is light. And because I am meek and humble of heart, and you shall find rest to your souls, for my yoke is sweet and my burden is light." Matthew 11. And then we have the varying response between the dwarves and the hobbit to that same hopeless situation. And it's showing us the state of their soul and the gift of hope. The hobbit received the gift of hope because he had the humility. Again, there's another time, when they discovered the unguarded treasure, the dwarves were ecstatic with excitement and thinking about all that they could do with the treasure. But Bilbo, he's not thinking that. It's not what he wants. Again, he's responding differently, and it comes from the detachment and simplicity of heart that they had. And then we have, of course, the old thrush helps them out. the old thrush who had been there helping them get into the temple, he had seen the weakness of the dragon, and he communicated it to the bard, who, of course, magically the light shone. They could see the one part that didn't glitter, and they knew that was the vulnerability. And that's how they defeated him. And it ended up being teamwork, right? It wasn't Bilbo who defeated the dragon, but because he had revealed that woundedness in the dragon, because the dragon had done that, the little bird had also seen it and figured out how to do that and communicated that to others. And that's part of being random. Part of being in a group study. Sometimes when you're revealing these things and discussing them, other people are going to have insights and see things that sometimes you get so inside your own head, inside your own story, you don't see things quite clearly. And having others on that faith journey with you is such a blessing. I wanted to read to you just a little bit here from My God, My All, The Life of St. Francis of Assisi by Elizabeth Goudge. We know I've reviewed a lot of these books. Some are better and some are worse. They all have different qualities. I'm on page 148. And it talks about the flowers of St. Francis when he was trying to discern the will of God. What was he supposed to do? He thought he had such a great gift of prayer. Should he enter into the contemplative prayer, or should he go out and speak the gospel? And so there's a whole process of what he does. He uses, let me say here, he goes to both Brother Maceo, and to St. Clare, and asking them, he sent for Brother Maceo to go to Clare and Brother Sylvester and ask them to pray that God would reveal to them his will for St. Francis. And they did that. They both went off and they prayed. They came back with the same answer. So he discerned with others. Beautiful. And what came back, they both got the same answer to their prayer for guidance. Francis's vocation was to go forth into the world and to preach the gospel. For the grace of the vocation was not given to him for himself alone, but was for the salvation of souls. If this was not what Francis had secretly wanted, it was the will of God, the thing that he adored. He adored the will of God. And the moment it shone out upon him, he was full of joy, and he cried out gladly, "Let us go forth in the name of God." He set out at once, and his mood of joy is shown in his choice of companions, the cheerful and eloquent Maceo and Angelo, happy and courteous. They tramped away through the woods from the Porciuncula, southeast in the direction of Canara. It was summer, with the sun fierce and wonderful, the harvest fields looking ready to burst into flame, the whole scene vital and strong and gay. From this glowing life in Francis himself and from his companions in the world about them, there came two sermons so full of power that in their different ways they are alive today as they were in this joyous time when Francis preached them. His utter delight in doing the will of God got into them and made them deathless. Beautiful. It does go on and talk to you more and more about preaching. And it tells you what those prayers are. And you're going to want to go on. It's interesting because it talks about Noah. And I believe I saw that it talked about Noah. And also so did our Bible passage about the servants. Talks a little bit about Noah earlier. Whew. That is just... I know, I tease out little threads, I weave them together, but the weaving is not done. That is for you. I hope you pick up one of these threads that I've given you, which one spoke to you most, and I hope that you run with it until I see you again next Tuesday and we look at the next lesson. Friends, may God bless you and keep you and make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the good Lord bless us in nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.